I like your essay, both of your essays. You said, I like Connie because I can understand her situation. She is a wrong character in terms of love because she changed it totally. I don't think that she is dishonest because although she has, what's this? She tries to fulfill the desire through Michael's mellows. Second is, I don't like mellows for Clifford. Clifford wants Connie to follow his thoughts and he advised her to have another person child. But I don't want her to, I don't want, does not want her to leave, which is a contradiction. Mellows is too negative about future. Connie loved Clifford because he wouldn't fulfill neither her, would fulfill neither her emotions body. Mellows married Bertha because they both had similar sexual desire, but Bertha left him and met another man. I like Sarah's essay best of all because it's a very beautiful essay. And the phrasing and the sentences are very beautiful, very thoughtful. Yeah. And Kim Il-soo. Question 10. Her answer, I like Mello because he possessed tenderness and sensuality, unlike Clifford, who is impersonal. Clifford is alienated from Connie for his absence of sensuality, whereas Connie thought highly of a physical relationship as well as psychological closeness. Mellows had to leave Bertha because his wife had changed all of a sudden, not wanting to have sex with Mellows. Mellows emphasized satisfaction from sex, not only with himself, but also with the woman. Lawrence emphasizes that both the exchange of tenderness and the satisfaction of sensuality are important. Here, only Constance could experience both, while Hilda could not get satisfaction with man. Okay, good observation. 9. Question 9. I dislike Connie because pursuit of sensual pleasure is uncontrollable, that it results in a somewhat abrupt end in both Clifford and Connie's and Mellows and Bertha's marriage. Even though I understand the feelings that she had been wrong, I believe she herself contributed to her misery. In her excuse for having an affair with Michaelis, she blames Clifford for not caring for her enough. If that was what she really felt, she could have talked how she felt to Clifford, but instead she chose to have an affair with an Irishman with things that Clifford might despise. Okay, I'll skip. Her answer to question 10. I admired Clifford for he continues to achieve something in his life despite his physical challenges, but I couldn't help disliking him when he developed this strange maternal love relationship with Mrs. Bolton. It was such a shame that he turned into such a weak and repulsive character, which only serves as justification for Connie's affair with other men. As for Mellows, although I don't approve of his affair with Connie, I like his attitudes toward his problems and situations. He strives to protect Connie and the child working on a farm. I thought that was responsible. Finally, the reason why Clifford, Connie, Mellows, and Bertha are separated, I believe, is lack of communication. All the characters feel that something is wrong, but never tells the other how they feel. They tend to have passive attitudes in their relationship and strangely expect the other to automatically know their feelings. This lack of communication caused all the characters to develop wrong feelings, and it eventually ended in the separation of the couples. Okay, good observation, very good. And OK papers, Jang Ju-yeon. and Kim Jong-un, Kim Jae-un, Chad. Chad, how do you know that Chad is missing? He says B.H. Lawrence's novel is superficial. How does he know? Because he didn't read it. He did not read it, finish the story. But the essay is good. And Annabelle, you did it very quickly, right? And the rest of you got initials, right? Okay, the novel Brave New World is set in London. And the year is 2540, right? And AD 2040. In the novel, the writer uses a special calendar, AF. What does it mean, AF? After Ford, right? Interesting, after Ford. So Fordism, Ford. The science fiction consists of 18 chapters, anticipate innovations such as reproductive technology, sleep learning, psychology, air conditioning. The novel title came from Shakespeare's The Tempest. How Vicious Mankind Is, or Brave New World. It is a story of John in relation with Linnea in the world state with different values. John, a savage. Linnea, a normal person who lived the life of the new world, new state. The story is very complicated, but the main line is this, right? The relation between Linnea and John. The world state is led by 10 world controllers. They are divided into 10 zones, and the director, the so-called director, is one of them. The stability of the world state is achieved by the conditioning of citizens. For example, the abolition of natural production, psychological conditioning, fit to their caste, encouragement to pure sensation, discouraging critical thinking, emphasis of the ritual, abundance of material goods, things like that. And chapter 1 is very important. Chapter 1. In the chapter, the students are guided in the hatchery and the laboratory by DHC, Director of Hatcheries and Conditioning, right? The director. Mr. Foster and Linnea are introduced here. The readers are informed of how the hatchery is operated. And in the chapter, the persons in chapter 1 are DHC, Thomas Tomakin, later on. In chapter 1, his name is now revealed. And student, Mr. Henley Foster, Mr. Foster, and Linnea, a nurse, and Pilkington is mentioned. And I find the style is very interesting. Probably there is the influence of Lawrence's novel, Lawrence style, or Yeats's influence on Huxley. I don't know. It's not very clear. Probably he must be influenced. Huxley's collection of poems, for example, is called Leda. Huxley is a poet, was a poet, philosopher, novelist. And in the style, key phrases are repeated impressively, repetition, or truncated sentences, medical terms. Actually, Huxley wanted to be a medical doctor, and instead he majored in literature. He graduated from Oxford with honors, first in English literature. And I think the first chapter, the form in first chapter, the form in first chapter fits the content superbly, I think. It's very good, right? So it's the introduction to a new lab of the world state. And PS contains a very interesting letter. Aldous Huxley, a novelist, poet, philosopher, graduated from Oxford with first-class honors in English literature. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature 7 times, but he didn't get it. Why? Why? I don't know. Why? Because every critic disliked his novel, and probably he was too far advanced, too advanced in his own age. He lived in Italy during the 1920s, where he would visit Lawrence. When Lawrence died, he edited Lawrence's letters in 1932. What does it mean? When he published this novel in 1932, he was influenced by Lawrence's style, Lawrence's ideas. And actually, what is interesting is the contents in both novels are almost the same. In D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover is what? He's contained in a wheelchair. It's like a bottle, right? And Clifford may represent modern man, right? He's another person, right? The meaning of Clifford, the human being, Clifford is expanded to hold humanity. We are incapacitated. We are unable to think logically, right? Right? We are under the swing of materials and machines and things like that. Same idea, right? Huxley married Maria Nice, a Belgian. Huxley's papers now are kept at the library of University of California, Los Angeles. Huxley died with 2 doses of LSD, 69. He had cancer, throat cancer, and he took 1 dose of LSD, and then he asked for it again, and he died with it. But on 22nd November 1963, what happened? Kennedy was assassinated, right? So Huxley wrote George Orwell commenting on 1984, a novel by for the comment on the ruling of the world. There was a very interesting letter on page 17. P.S., right, at the back. 17. The letter is not very long, page 15. The letter was written in 1949. Dear Mr. Orwell, it was very kind of you to tell your publishers to send me a copy of your book. It arrived as I was in the midst of a piece of work that required much reading and consulting of references. It's interesting. While writing, Huxley used a lot of books, reference books. Right? So in the first chapters, you will see a lot of medical terms, very strange words. Right? So, and since poor eyesight makes it necessary for me to ration my reading, he has so poor sight. Right? He lost his eyesight in childhood. I had to wait a long time before being able to embark on 1984, the novel by George Orwell. Agreeing with all that the critics have written of it, I did not to tell you yet once more how fine and how profoundly important the book is. May I speak instead of the thing with which the book deals the ultimate revolution. The first hints of a philosophy of the ultimate revolution, the revolution which lies beyond the politics and economics and which aims at the total subversion of the individual psychology and physiology, are to be found in the Marquis de Sade, who regarded himself as the continuator, the consummator of Robespierre and Barbe. The philosophy of the ruling minority in 1984 is a sadism which has been carried to its logical conclusion by going beyond sex and denying it. Whether in actual fact the policy of the boot on the face can go on indefinitely seems doubtful. My own belief is that the ruling oligarchy will find less arduous and wasteful ways of governing and of satisfying its lust for power. These ways will resemble those which I described in Brave New World. So this, what it describes in this novel will be the way rulers could rule the world, right? I have had occasion recently to look into the history of animal magnetism and hypnotism, which I'm greatly struck by the way in which for 150 years the world has refused to take serious cognizance of the discoveries of Messner, Braid, Ashtail, and the rest, partly because of the prevailing materialism and partly because of prevailing respectability. 19th century philosophers and men of science were not willing to investigate the other factors of psychology for practical man, such as politicians, soldiers, policemen to apply in the field of government. Thanks to the voluntary ignorance of our fathers, the advent of the ultimate revolution was delayed for 5 or 6 generations. Another lucky accident was Freud's inability to hypnotize successfully and his consequent disparagement of hypnoticism. This delayed the general application of hypnotism to psychiatry for at least 40 years. This is important from this. But now, psychoanalysis is being combined with hypnosis. Really? Yeah, I think I agree with this because you see the advertisement is hypnotism, right? Indirect advertisement, direct advertisement. You are under the sway of it, right? Right? Why do you wear necktie of this kind? I got a gift. It's very expensive. Why do you buy it? Paying so much money. Hypnotism, right? And hypnosis has been made easy and indefinitely extensible through the use of barbiturates, which induce hypnoid and suggestible state in even the most recalcitrant subjects. Within the next generation, I believe that the world's rulers will discover the infant conditioning, right? Hatchery, right? And narco hypnosis are more efficient as instruments of government than clubs and prisons. This is true in the United States. What is happening is this, right? And that the lust for power can be just as completely satisfied by suggesting people to loving their servitude as by flogging and kicking them into obedience. Allegiance, right? Right? In other words, I feel that the nightmare of 1984 is destined to modulate into the nightmare of a world having more resemblance to that which I imagined in Brave New World. The change will be brought almost as a result of a felt need for increased efficiency. Meanwhile, of course, there may be a large-scale biological and atomic war, in which case we shall have nightmares of other and scarcely imaginable kinds. Thank you again for the book. What do you think of North Korea? Right? It's hypnotism, kind of hypnotism, right? Psychology. manipulation, psychological manipulation, right? So let's begin with chapter 1. A squat gray building of only 34 stories of the main entrance to the words, Central London, Hatchery and Conditioning Center, and initial the world state's motto, community, identity, stability. The first paragraph is fantastic. Right? Do you remember the beginning of Lady Chester's Lover? Right? 2 paragraphs. It begins with 2 paragraphs. At a glance, they look different, but they combine them, but very objectively, right? Here, very objective, and the first sentence is what? A squat gray building of only 34 stories. Only 34 stories? 34? Very high to our standard, but in the future, it could be very normal. 34, 50, very low buildings, right? High-rise build. So, and squat, right? Very low building, squat. Gray building of only 34 stories. So it is just a phrase, no sentence. Do you remember Yeats's Leader Swan? A sudden, a sudden blow. Just a phrase, great. And D.H. Lawrence used this kind of phrase instead of full sentences. And this is very effective in this chapter. And over the main entrance to words and capital letters, Central London, Hatchery and Conditioning Center, and initialed the world state's motto, community, identity, stability. This is the theme of the novel, right? The enormous room on the ground floor faced the north. Faced north. What does it mean? Faced north. Cold. Right? Faced south. The UK is located in the northern hemisphere. So if you face north, it is cold, right? So the enormous room on the ground floor faced towards the north. Cold for all the summer beyond the panes. Beyond the panes. Cold. What does it mean? Inside, it'll be hot, right? For all the tropical heat of the room itself, what is it? Hatchery, right? Babies, a lot of babies. A harsh, thin light glared through the thin light glared through the windows. Hungrily seeking some draped lay figure, some pallid shape of academic gush flash, but finding only the glass nickel and bleakly shining porcelain of a laboratory. Winteriness respond to winteriness. The overalls of the workers are white. The overall workers are white. Their hands gloved with the pale corpse-colored rubber. The light was frozen there, ghost. Only from the yellow barrels of microscopes did it borrow a certain rich and living substance, lying along the polished tubes like butter, luscious streak, long recession down the work tables. Description of the laboratory, right? And this, said the director opening door, is the fertilizing room. Impressive, huh? This is the fertilizing room. In the second paragraph, the enormous room, and then description of the room, and then third paragraph, this is the fertilizing room. So highly visual, right? And the next paragraph, bent over their instrument, 300 fertilizers were plunked. 300 fertilizers were plunged as the director of hatcheries and conditioning entered the room in the scarcely silence. The absence-minded soliloquizing hum or whistle of absorbed concentration. A troop of newly arrived students, very young, pink and callow, followed nervously, rather abjectly, at the director's heels. Each of them carried notebook. It's interesting. Each of them carried notebook. If the novel were written again, what would you carry? All of you will carry what? Cell phones, right? Right? Notepad instead of notebook, right? Interesting. Carried notebook in which, whenever the great man spoke, he desperately scribbled straight from the horse's mouth. Again, no sentence, right? Straight from the horse's mouth, phrase, right? It was a rare privilege. The DHC for Central London always made a point of personally conducting his new students around the various departments. Actually, the DHC, the director of hatchery and conditioning, is actually, he becomes the father of a young man, John. And he lady took a holiday, and then she was pregnant and gave birth to a child, John. She was educated there with only a manual, technical manual, and a collection of Shakespeare's tragedies. See, it's quite interesting, right? The only instruments they used are the book, the collection of Shakespeare tragedies, and the technical book, science book. And what does it mean? The character John is like the hero in Shakespeare play, and the anyway. Just to give you an idea, he would explain to them. For, of course, some sort of general idea they must have if they were to do their work intelligently, as little of one, they were to be good and happy members of society as possible. For particulars, as everyone knows, make for virtue and happiness, generalities are intellectually necessary evils, not philosophers, but fresh soilers, stamp collectors, compose the backbone of society. Tomorrow, your dad is smiling at them with a slightly menacing geniality. You'll be settling down to serious work. You won't have time for generalities. Meanwhile, the next sentence the paragraph begins with meanwhile. It was a privilege, straight from the horse's mouth into the notebook. The boy scribbled like mad. Quite interesting, right? Funny, and actually the whole novel is what? It's a commentary on society. It's a kind of satire. Tall, rather thin but upright, the director advanced into the room. He had a long chin, big, rather prominent teeth, just covered when he was not talking, by full, forward curved lips, old, young, 30, 50, 55. It was hard to say. It's interesting. I like this very much, right? Yeah, old, young, 30, 50. About the director, right? And anyhow, the question didn't arise. In this year of stability, AF 632, AF, right? After Ford, right? It didn't occur to you to ask it. I shall begin at the beginning, so the DHC, and the more students recorded his intention in his notebook. Begin at the beginning. These, he waved his hand, are the incubators. He's explaining the babies in bottles, right? And opening in an isolated door, he showed them racks upon racks of number 2 test tubes. So they pass each of the racks, and opening on the insulated door, he showed them racks upon racks of numbered test tubes, the week's supply of ova, kept, he explained, at a blood heat, whereas the male gametes. And here he opened another door. They have to be kept at 35 instead of 37 full blood heat sterilizers, wrapped in thermogen baguette, no lamps. In the later part, you'll see the heat, right? The temperatures are very important, right? Still leaning against the incubators he gave them, while the pencil scurried illegibly across the pages. Students, right? Students writing like. A brief description of the modern fertilizing process. First, of course, of the surgical introduction, the operation undergone voluntarily for good of society, not to mention the fact that it carries a bonus amounted 6-month salary, continued with some account of the technique for preserving the exercise, the ovary alive and actively developing, passed on to a consideration of optimum temperature, salinity, viscosity refer to the liquor in which the detached and ripened eggs were kept. By the way, what do you think? I think this could become a reality in the future, right? Korea, no women want to have a baby. Wow, they want to get pregnant. What will happen? Korea will disappear in 500 years, according to forecast. Japan will disappear earlier than Korea. United States will disappear from the surface first. Nobody wants to be pregnant. What is the solution? This. Right? To raise kids in tubes. That's the only solution, probably, right? I don't know. And leading his charges to the work tables actually showed them how this liquor is grown off from the test tubes and how it was let out, drop by drop, onto the specially warmed slides of the microscopes, how the eggs, which contained, were inspected for abnormalities, counted and transferred to a porous receptacle. How, and he now took them to watch the operation. This receptacle was immersed in warm, bouillon liquid containing free-swimming spermatozoa at the minimum concentration of 100,000 per cubic meter, he insisted. But how, after 10 minutes, the container was lifted out of liquor and its contents re-examined, and so on. This paragraph is important. How, if any of the eggs remained unfertilized, it was again immersed, and if necessary, yet again. How the fertilized ova went over to the incubators, where the alphas and betas remain until definitely bottled, while the gammas and deltas and epsilons are brought out again after only 36 hours to undergo Bokanovsky's process. What is it? Bokanovsky's. Bokanovsky's process, repeated the director, and the students underlined the words in their little notebooks. One egg, one embryo, one adult. Usually, that's what happens in today's world, normality. But a Bokanovsky-fied egg will bud, will proliferate, will divide. From 8 to 96 bars, if it goes through this process, right? And every bud will grow into a perfectly formed embryo, every embryo into a full-size adult, making 96 human beings grow where only one grew before. Progress. Wonderful. I like the style, right? He explains it, and he used progress, right? One egg, one human being, right? But one egg, how many? 96 human beings out of one egg. Progress, right? Essentially, the DHC concluded Bogdanov's keyfication consists of a series of arrests of development. We check the normal growth, and paradoxically enough, the eggs respond by budding. Interesting, right? Responds by budding. The pencils were busy, right? Students put it down, right? He pointed out, on a very slowly moving band, a rack full of test tubes was entering a large metal box. Another rack full was emerging. Machinery faintly purred. It took 8 minutes for the tubes to go through, he told them. 8 minutes of hard x-rays being about as much as an egg can stand. A few died. Of the rest, the least susceptible divided into two. Most put out 4 bars. Some 8. All were returned to the incubators where the bars began to develop, and then after 2 days were suddenly checked. 2, 4, 8, and the bars in their turn budded. Having budded were dosed almost to death with alcohol, consequently burgeoned again, having budded. Bud out of bud were thereafter further, the rest being generally fatal, left to develop in peace. Wonderful. I like. This is fantastic. Right? Could you write this? This kind, right? Extremely good, right? By which time the original egg was in a fair way to becoming anything from 8 to 96 embryos. A prodigious improvement, you will agree, on nature, right? Usually one, right? But identical genes, but not in pitting 2s and 3s as in the old viviparous days, when an egg would sometimes accidentally divide, actually by dozens, by scores at a time. So, in the New World, there are thousands of people with the same last name, but they are not cousins. They came out of one egg, for example, things like that. Scores, the director repeated and flung out his arms as though he were distributing largesse. Scores. But one of the students was fool enough to ask, where the advantage lay? One of the stupid students asked a question, right? And my good boy, the director wheeled sharply around on him. Can't you see? Can't you see? He raised a hand. His expression was sullen. Bogdanovsky's process is one of the major instruments of social stability. Why? Why do they need it? Right? They make people as they want, right? They create a lower kind of beings. Right? For example, some people should work cleaning all the time. They are not complaining, right? Right. So alpha, beta, things like that, right? So, and the process is one of the major instruments of social stability. Italics, right? Major instruments of social stability. And students scribble down, right? Standard men and women, uniform badges. The whole of a small factory exactly accounts for a single Bogdanovsky egg from one egg. Yeah. It would be very convenient, but the problem is probably Huxley didn't expect we would have A1, huh? Right? Robots will become as intelligent as human, right? So he'll write a different story, right? Anyway, 96 identical twins working 96 identical machines. The point was almost tremulous with enthusiasm. You really know where you are for the first time in history. He called it the planetary motto, community, identity, stability, grand words. If we could Volkanovskify indefinitely, the whole problem would be solved. Solved by standard gammas, unvarying deltas, uniform epsilons, billions of identical twins. The principle of mass production at last applies to biology. Actually, Huxley's background is what? There are famous biologists in his family, right? So he knew much about it, right? Page 8, but alas, the director shook his head. We can't Volkanovskify indefinitely. 96 seemed to be the limit. 96 seemed to be a limit. 72, a good average. From the same ovary and with the gametes of the same male to manufacture as many batches of identical twins as possible. That was the best, sadly a second best, that we could do, and even that was difficult. For in nature, it takes 30 years for 200 eggs to reach maturity. Right. Okay, the next paragraph. Obviously, no use at all, but Partnev's technique had immensely accelerated the process of ripening. They could make sure of at least 150 mature eggs within 2 years, fertilize and Volkanovskify. In other words, multiply by 72 and you get an average of nearly 11,000 brothers and sisters in 150 batches of identical twins, all within 2 years of the same age. And in exceptional cases, we can make one ovary yield is over 15,000 adult individuals. Quite amazing, right? Right. So, beckoning to a fair-haired, really young man who happened to be passing at the moment. So one of the workers there, Mr. Foster, he called. Mr. Foster, the really young man approached. Can you tell us the record for a single ovary? Mr. Foster, 7,012 in the center. Mr. Foster replied without hesitation. Amazing, one egg, one ove, one egg, right? From one egg, 7,012 people were born. Right? Amazing, right? So, page 9, third paragraph, 1, 2, 3. Mr. Foster smiled modestly with pleasure. In the bustling room, all was harmonious bustle and ordered activity. Plucks the fresh showed peritoneum, ready cut. Pork belly, right? ready, cut to the proper size, came shooting out in little lips from the organ store in sub-basement. Wheeze and then click. The lip touches flew open, and the bottle liner had only to reach out the hand, take the flap, insert, smooth down, and for the lined bottle had time to travel out of it along the endless band. Wheeze, click. Another plug of peritoneum had shot up from the dash, ready to be slipped into yet another bottle, the next of the slow, interminable procession of the band. So, okay, page 11, the third paragraph. Embryos are like photograph films, said Mr. Foster. Waggishly, as he pushed off from the second door, they can only stand red light. And in effect, the sultry darkness into which the students now followed him was visible and crimson, like the darkness like the darkness of closed eyes on a summer's afternoon. The bulging flanks of row on receding row, and tier above tier of bottles glinted with innumerable rubies, and among the rubies moved the dim red specters of men and women with purple eyes, and all the symptoms of lupus. The hum and rattle of machinery faintly stirred the air. Give them a few figures. Foster was only too happy to give them a few figures. 220 meters long, 200 wide, 10 high. He pointed to upwards. It's very funny. Children acts like this. The students act like this. Like chickens drinking, the students lifted their eyes toward the distant ceiling. Right? 3 tiers of racks, ground floor level, first gallery, second gallery. The spidery steelwork of gallery above gallery faded away in all directions to dark. Near them, 3 red ghosts were busily unloading demijohns from a moving staircase. Demijohn is bottle, long neck, a bottle with no leg. The escalator from the social predestination room. Each bottle could be placed on 15 racks, each rack, etc. Okay, page 12, second from bottom, second paragraph. Told them of the, Mr. Foster duly told them, and then subject is omitted, told, described, referred, and things like that. Told them of the glowing embryo on his bed of patritoneum, made them taste the rich blood, brought the surrogate on which it fed, explained why it had to be stimulated with placentin and thyroxine, told them of the corpus luteum, spoke and showed, referred, and things. And then next paragraph, showed, hinted, and so on. So, okay, they create different kinds of human beings, right? The temperature decides it, right? Page 14, from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The lower the caste, said Mr. Foster, the shorter the oxygen. They give little oxygen to create a lower kind of human being, right? So the lower the caste, the shorter the oxygen. The first oxygen affected was the brain. After that, the skeleton. At 70% of normal oxygen, you got dwarfs. At less than 70, eyeless monsters. Things like that. This is just the imagination, but it's fantastic, right? Who are no use at all, concluded Mr. Foster. Whereas, his voice became confidential and eager. If they could discover a technique for shortening the period of maturation with time, what a benefaction to society. Consider horse. They considered it. Mature at 6. So, horse mature at 6. Elephant at 10. Right? And while at 13, man is not sexually mature, and is only fully grown at 20. Hence, of course, that fruit of delayed development, the human intelligence. But in Epsilon, said Mr. Foster very justly, we don't need human intelligence. Didn't need and didn't get it. Okay. And the last paragraph on the same page. Pilkington at Mombasa had produced individuals who were sexually mature at 4 and full grown at 6 and a half. 6 and a half. A scientific triumph. Right? Interesting, right? But socially useless. 6-year-old men and women were too stupid to do even epsilon work. And the process was all or nothing one. Okay. Next paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. Hot tunnels alternated with cold tunnels. Coldness was wedded to discomfort in the form of hard X-rays. By the time they were decanted, the embryos, they were decanted. The embryos had a horror of cold. They were predestined to immigrate to the tropics, to be miners and acetate silk spinners and steel workers. So they create miners and workers, right? It must be very convenient, right? Probably Kim Jong-il must like it. Kim Jong-un, right? Later on, their minds would be made. Would be made to endorse the judgments of their bodies. We conditioned them to thrive on heat, concluded Mr. Foster. Our colleagues upstairs will teach them to love it. Same page from bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, Linnea, said Mr. Foster, when at least she withdrew the syringe and straightened her hostel file. Linnea is a nurse working there, and actually Linnea represents what? A representative woman, a woman typical of the world state. Right? And they love John. She loves John, and but there is a big difference between them, right? They have different values, right? The girl turned with a start. One could see that for all the lupus and purple eyes, she was uncommonly pretty. Henley Foster, right? Henley, his smile flashed brightly at him, a row of coral teeth. Charming, muttered the director, and giving her 2 or 3 little pats, received in exchange a rather deferential smile for himself. What are you giving them? Asked Mr. Foster, making his tone very professional. Oh, the usual typhoid and sleeping sickness. Tropical workers start being inoculated at meter 150. Mr. Foster explained to the student, the embryos still have gills. Do you know that humans have gills in embryos, right? You stay in water, right? So you need gill, right? So they immunize the fish against the future man's diseases. But then turning back to Linnea, 10 to 5 on the roof this afternoon, as usual. Charming, okay. I'll skip one paragraph. On rack 10, rows of next generation chemical workers were being trained in the toleration of lead, caustic soda, tar, chloride. They should be very special, right? They should stand them, right? Stand these kind of chemicals. The first of a batch of 250 embryonic rocket plant engineers, different kinds of human beings, was just passing the 1,100-meter mark on rack 3. A special mechanism kept the containers in constant rotation to improve their sense of balance. It's interesting. They feel happy upside down. Rocket workers, right? Mr. Foster explained, doing repairs on the outside of rocket in midair is a ticklish job. It's amazing. Huxley didn't see the rockets, spaceships, right? But he had imagined it. Amazing, right? We slackened off the circulation when they were right way up so that they are half-starved, double the flow of surrogate when they are upside down. They learn to associate topsy-turvydom with well-being. In fact, they are only truly happy when they are standing on their heads. So it's a very different kind of human being. So, and now Mr. Foster went on, I'd like to show you some very interesting conditioning for alpha plus intellectuals. Alpha plus, like the director, he is alpha plus. He's alpha plus. We have a big batch of them on rack 5, first gallery level. They called the 2 boys who had started to go down to the ground floor. They are around about meter 900, he explained. You can really do any useful intellectual conditioning till the fetuses have lost their tails. Follow me? So all of us have tails, right? You have to lose the tails to become human being, right? So the chapter 1 is fascinating. This is wonderful. So why don't you do 3 chapters? Summarize 3 chapters and find what is very interesting to you. Write one summary and a short paragraph about what you find interesting, okay?